Welcome to the Founder Files. The FBI arrested FIFA's leaders in the same hotel where FIFA was celebrating itself. 6 in the morning. Zurich, Switzerland. May 27, 2015. Swiss police moved through the marble corridors of the Baur and knocked on doors. Inside were not gangsters. They were the men who ran world football. And they were led out in front of news cameras, past the luxury cars, past the banners welcoming FIFA's own Congress, which was scheduled to begin that same morning. It was not a scene from a crime thriller. It was real, and it had been building for decades. To understand how football's governing body became a criminal enterprise, you have to go back to the beginning. FIFA, the Fédération Internationale de Football Association, was founded in Paris on May 21, 1904. 7 European national associations signed a single piece of paper in a back room. No television deals, no billion-dollar sponsorships. Just 7 nations agreeing that someone needed to organize the game. For decades, FIFA was a modest administrative body with limited power. That changed in the 1970s, when a Brazilian named João Havelange ran for FIFA president on a platform of expanding the World Cup and bringing in corporate sponsorship. He won, and he brought with him a Swiss marketing executive named Sepp Blatter, who understood something most football administrators did not. The World Cup was not just a sporting event. It was a media product, and media products could be monetized on a scale no one in football had yet imagined. The 1994 World Cup was the turning point no one talks about enough. The United States hosted. Critics called it absurd, but the numbers told a different story. The attendance records set in 1994 still stand today, over 30 years later. More than 3.5 million people attended matches across 9 American cities. The American broadcast market opened FIFA's eyes to something transformative. If they could sell the World Cup to American networks, they could fund everything else. Sepp Blatter became president in 1998 and drove that engine as fast as it would go. Under Blatter, television rights deals multiplied and corporate sponsorships poured in from every continent. The 2022 World Cup final between Argentina and France drew an estimated 1.5 billion viewers globally. 1.5 billion people watching one game. And where there is that kind of money with almost no independent oversight, corruption does not just become possible. It becomes inevitable. Sepp Blatter served as FIFA president for 17 years, from 1998 to 2015. In that time, FIFA's total revenue for a single 4-year World Cup cycle reached approximately $7.5 billion, driven almost entirely by television rights and sponsorship. Blatter positioned himself as the people's president. He championed football development in Africa, Asia, and the Caribbean. He made smaller nations feel seen. But behind the handshakes and stadium openings, a very different culture had taken hold. Votes were bought. Media rights were sold with envelopes attached. Regional confederations became personal fiefdoms, where officials enriched themselves for decades. The system worked because everyone at the top had something to lose if it stopped working. And the man who understood that better than anyone was not a FIFA executive. He was an enormous American sports administrator named Chuck Blazer, and he was about to become the most consequential informant in the history of professional sport. Chuck Blazer was the General Secretary of CONCACAF, the confederation governing football in North and Central America and the Caribbean, and a member of FIFA's own executive committee. He was an improbable power broker. Over 400 pounds, a massive gray beard. He rode a motorized scooter through FIFA events. He kept 2 apartments at Trump Tower in New York, one for himself and one reportedly for his cats. Flamboyant, eccentric, and completely embedded at the highest level of world football for over 2 decades. He had also been skimming money for years, taking undisclosed commissions on media rights deals and hiding income in offshore accounts. When the FBI approached him in 2011, Blazer made a choice. He cooperated. For 4 years, Chuck Blazer wore a wire at FIFA events, recorded conversations with colleagues, and fed intelligence to federal investigators. He attended World Cup draws. He sat in FIFA boardrooms. He shook hands with the same men he was helping to destroy. No one suspected a thing. December 2nd, 2010, Zurich. A single room, a single vote, and two decisions that would define and ultimately detonate the next 12 years of world football. In one session, FIFA's executive committee awarded the 2018 World Cup to Russia and the 2022 World Cup to Qatar. Simultaneously, two of the most controversial hosting decisions ever made, rubber-stamped in the same afternoon. The United States, Australia, Japan, and England all lost their bids. Both winners would later sit at the center of bribery allegations and years of legal investigation. Qatar, a nation slightly smaller than Connecticut, with no footballing tradition, summer temperatures exceeding 50 degrees Celsius, and a population smaller than many individual cities, had won the right to host the most watched event on Earth. The cost of that decision, in money, in human lives, and in moral credibility, would be staggering. Qatar 2022 cost somewhere between $220 billion and $300 billion in total infrastructure spending. That figure is not a typo. For context, the entire 2022 Winter Olympics in Beijing cost approximately $50 billion. Qatar spent multiple times that on a single football tournament, new stadiums, new roads, a new metro system, an entirely new city built from the ground up. And to build all of it, Qatar imported hundreds of thousands of migrant workers, primarily from South Asia and Sub-Saharan Africa, under a legal system that critics compared to indentured labor. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International documented deaths among those workers during construction. The controversy never went away. And then, in a decision that announced how far FIFA's priorities had drifted from the actual sport, the tournament was moved out of its traditional summer slot and played in November and December. Because summer temperatures in Qatar would have made outdoor football potentially lethal. Billions in broadcast disruption, years of fixture chaos, all because of a vote that should never have gone the way it did. Back to Zurich, May 27th, 2015. The U.S. Department of Justice had indicted 14 FIFA officials on charges including racketeering, wire fraud, and money laundering. The indictment alleged over $150 million in bribes paid across multiple World Cup cycles in exchange for media and marketing rights, worth billions. 7 officials were taken from the Baur that morning. And 4 days later, something almost surreal happened. Sepp Blatter, whose name was not in the initial indictment, had just been re-elected FIFA president for a 5th term. He won partly because his rivals had already been arrested. Then, on June 2nd, 2015, Blatter called a press conference. He thanked God, he thanked FIFA, and he resigned. 17 years, 5 terms, gone in a single press conference. Blatter was later banned from football for 8 years by FIFA's own ethics committee, a ban that was subsequently reduced. But he has never faced criminal conviction in the United States. There is one more story buried inside all of this that rarely gets told. The 1998 World Cup final, France versus Brazil. Hours before kickoff, Ronaldo, Brazil's greatest player and the tournament's defining star, suffered what witnesses described as a convulsive episode in the team hotel. He was initially left off the team sheet. Then, inexplicably, his name was added back. Brazil lost 3-0 to France. What followed was a Brazilian parliamentary inquiry, not just into what happened to Ronaldo, but into the role of Nike, which held a controversial commercial contract with the Brazilian Football Confederation. That contract allegedly gave the sportswear giant significant influence over which matches Brazil played, and, some claimed, who played in them. The inquiry never reached a definitive legal conclusion. Nike denied any wrongdoing, but the question it raised has never fully gone away. In a world where a corporation's marketing contract could influence player selection for a World Cup final, who was actually in charge of the game? The answer, increasingly, was not football people. Gianni Infantino replaced Blatter in February 2016, elected on a promise of reform and transparency. The reform did not quite arrive as advertised. In 2020, Infantino relocated to Doha, Qatar, a move widely criticized as a conflict of interest, while FIFA was overseeing the preparation of Qatar 2022. In March 2023, on the eve of International Women's Day, Infantino delivered a speech in which he declared, and this is a direct quote, "Today I feel Qatari. Today I feel Arabic. Today I feel African. Today I feel gay. Today I feel disabled." The reaction ranged from disbelief to outright mockery. It became an instant symbol of how completely FIFA had lost the ability to read the room it was standing in. The organization that sold itself as the guardian of the beautiful game had produced a president who could say those words and apparently not realize how they would land. And yet, FIFA still exists. It still generates billions. The machine kept running. And now, June 11th, 2026. The World Cup returns to North America. For the first time ever, 3 nations co-host: the United States, Canada, and Mexico. For the first time ever, 48 teams compete across 16 host cities. A tournament born from a piece of paper signed by 7 men in a Paris back room in 1904 has grown into an event so large, so lucrative, and so politically entangled that no single government or corporation fully controls it. The FBI tried to clean it up. They arrested officials, flipped informants, extracted guilty pleas. Chuck Blazer died in 2017 before he was sentenced. Several officials were convicted. Hundreds of millions of dollars were forfeited. And yet, the fundamental structure of FIFA, the voting blocks, the regional power brokers, the opacity of its decisions, remains largely intact. The empire did not fall. It adapted. Because when your product is the one thing that unites more human beings than any other event on the calendar, you are, in the end, too big to cancel. This is the Founder Files, Beyond the Brand. Every empire has a story, and the story of FIFA is not really about football. It is about power, and what happens when power has no one watching it. If this episode made you think differently about the game you love, or the institutions that claim to protect it, hit subscribe and leave a comment below. We read every single one. Tell us what you think FIFA's biggest scandal actually was. The bribery, the Qatar decision, the worker deaths, or something else entirely. More empires. More untold stories. Coming soon. See you next time on the Founder Files.